Thomas and Friends isn't new to making episodes about Halloween or things that can be scary. But the main problem with episodes like that is that Thomas is a kid's show. So there aren't really any episodes that are going to be outwardly scary for the child audience. Except for one episode, which I think is Season 5's Duncan Gets Spooked, which is the closest to Thomas and Friends ever making something scary. Just a little bit of added context before I talk about the plot. This episode takes place on the narrow gauge railway of Thomas and Friends. This just means that the engines we're going to be looking at are smaller than the characters you would usually see in the show. And also what I'm implying here is that this episode takes place with the supporting cast. None of the main characters show up in this episode. The Skarloey engines are all cleaning up the debris that has fallen onto their railway. Then we specifically cut to Peter Sam, who has run out of water and needs Rusty to help him to the nearest water tower. While he's trying to get water, the trucks get bored and, well, the trucks broke away and were too stupid to read the sign, and because of that negligence, they end up falling. It's concluded that Peter Sam's driver and fireman did not fasten the couplings on the trucks correctly, and that's how they ended up breaking away. Peter Sam is scolded by the fat controller for not having his due diligence, and Duncan makes fun of him for it.
Fancy no securing your trucks on a hill. They'll come back to spook you in your special funnel. Woo woo woo!
So this far into the episode, we can understand that Duncan is the bad guy, and he will get his just desserts. Rusty, who doesn't like Duncan's teasing, decides to tell him a spooky story that he's heard. And this was the story he told.
A long time ago, a little engine was returning home. It was a misty, moonlit night. As the engine crossed the old iron bridge, he suddenly lost control and plunged over the side into the swamps below. He was never found again. But many a workman will tell you that when the moon is full, they have seen the little engine trying to get home, but he never reaches the other side.
And what was Duncan's reaction?
"Pah, nonsense," replied Duncan, and he puffed away.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to really care. But Duncan's driver and fireman come up with the idea to try and spook Duncan, and they plan on doing it that very night. Even though Duncan earlier seemed to not really care about the story and called it hogwash, throughout the day he seems to get more and more paranoid the more he thinks about it.
But all the same, he kept thinking about Rusty's story.
As the day grows closer to ending, Duncan complains that he wants to go home, and his driver explains that they have one more slate delivery to take, and then they get to leave. And instead of explaining this next sequence to you, I'll just let it play out in full.
When night fell, they set off. The moon was full, and the mists were rising around the old iron bridge. Duncan whistled, and the sound echoed everywhere. Then ahead, he saw flickering lights. His driver knew they were only little insects that shine brightly at night, but to Duncan, they looked like an engine. Next, his driver secretly threw a rock from the cab into the ravine below. "It's the ghost! Take me back, please!"
Duncan races back to the slate quarry sheds and closes his eyes tightly and does not open them, with his driver saying,
"Spooked are you, Duncan?" laughed his driver.
And only when his driver's back is turned on him, he decides to finally open his eyes, making sure that his driver is still there. But hold on a second. What did Duncan actually see? Now, some of you might first think that, oh, it was a part of the driver's prank, obviously, just to make him scared. But that really doesn't make any sense. It only says specifically that he threw the rock just to make a loud noise to scare him. Not that he magically made fireflies come together to make a steam engine. Well, if it wasn't a part of the driver's prank, then what was the silhouette Duncan saw? That's the thing. We don't know. That's what makes this episode so great. It highlights the unsettling nature of things that cannot be explained, which makes us, as humans, uncomfortable. We like to know the answers to things, and if it's something that's not explainable in a place you don't feel safe in, it makes us scared. And my favorite part about this episode is the fact that we never got an answer, making the child audience make up their own conclusions, which ultimately might be more scary than what the episode shows us. It makes you think and come up with your own conclusion rather than you being fed the answer. One other aspect that I really enjoy about this episode is the story that Rusty tells is also never stated if it's true. For all we know, Rusty could have made that story up, which makes Duncan's encounter even more terrifying. What if that story is not true? What if what he saw wasn't the story? This is such a smart way to make something unsettling in kids' TV. Rather than outright trying to show something that is outwardly scary, you leave out certain details and make it ambiguous for the people watching, so they can come up with the unsettling stuff in their own mind, to bypass the higher-ups that might turn down your idea because it's too scary. And also, the theme of this episode is just something interesting to think about. What is real and what is not? Is that thing you saw really there? Or is it just something that goes bump in the night?